Hey everyone, it's Mike Brogan with Mike's Tutorials, and in this video I'm going to show you a couple of quick tips to get better battery life with your iOS device. So whether it's an iPhone or iPad, follow these tips to get better battery life, especially if you're finding you're not quite making it to the end of the day. These tips should help you out. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. I'm using an iPhone here with iOS 9. And let's dive in. So the first thing I want to show you is just make sure you're running the latest version of the software. So if you just go into settings and then general and then software update, make sure you're just running the latest version because usually there's bug fixes that fix battery life. So that's one thing. The other thing that's pretty simple, but some people don't think about is control your screen brightness. The brightness of the screen is one of the major ways that battery life gets sucked up. So how do you do that? There's a couple of different ways. Back in settings, you can go to display and brightness, and you've got a slider here where you can adjust that. But there's also a quicker way through Control Center. So if you swipe up from the bottom of your screen, kind of have your thumb off the screen on the bottom, bring it up, that brings up Control Center, and there's a slider here that you can adjust to change the screen brightness. So just keep it at the lowest level that works for you for the given situation. Another option is back in this display and brightness is to set auto brightness on. That means that if you are in a dark room, it will automatically lower the brightness, and if you're outside and it's sunny, it will increase the brightness. So that can be a helpful way to save battery life. So you're just not running it at full blast all the time. Okay, let's move on. Check your auto lock settings. So I see this a lot where, especially on the iPad, where that's the setting that says, how long should the device wait until the screen turns off. One thing to do is to get in the habit of just locking your device when you're done with it instead of just like setting it down with the screen on. But if you have, if that's not an easy habit to form, then check this out. If you go back into settings, into general, and then auto lock, you can set the amount of time before the device locks itself. And so if you have it set to 5 minutes, or if you have it set to never, then the screen's just going to stay on until the battery runs out if you don't manually lock it. So this is sort of a personal preference. The shorter the time, the better battery life you might get, especially if you're not manually locking your device. And the iPad can go up to like 15 minutes. So just be aware that that's an option, that if you lower that time, you'll get better battery life. Another thing to do is just be connected to Wi-Fi. Just sort of a simple tip, but some people, they will turn off their Wi-Fi in an effort to save battery life. But in some cases, usually that means that your phone is then using your cellular data. That actually uses more battery life than Wi-Fi. So go into settings, go to Wi-Fi, make sure Wi-Fi is on and is connected to your access point. And if you're using your phone for an extended period of time and you're somewhere where there is Wi-Fi, try to connect to it. You'll get better battery life. Check out I think this came out in iOS 9, maybe it was iOS 8, I can't remember. But back in settings, there's an option called battery. This is a great place to go to see what apps are sucking up your battery life. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's not necessarily direct action to take here, but it can be useful to see. Okay, these are apps that in the last 24 hours I've been using quite a bit. Sometimes I'll see, if you see home and lock screen up with a large percentage, it probably means your auto lock settings might be need to be changed. Usually people are not just hanging around on their home and lock screens. That should be kind of low. You can look within the last 24 hours, within the last 7 days. So you can see, these kind of make sense because these are the apps that I tend to use the most on my phone. So it sort of makes sense. But if you see an app that's way high up here and it's an app that you didn't think you were using very much, Maybe look to see if you can get an app update through the App Store, or maybe there's another app that does the same thing that has better battery life. Um, so I would definitely look there too. Some of these apps do things in the background too, and so you can also tell them to not do things in the background, which I'll show you in a sec. Before I do that, there's low power mode, which is a great way to get extra battery life because it basically reduces some of the functionality of the phone. It turns off automatic mail fetching, background app refreshing, automatic downloads. It tones down the some of the visual effects. And if you're on iOS 9 and you get down to 20% or 10% battery life, the phone will tell you, or the iPad, and it will offer you to turn on low power mode. But if you're going on a trip or you're going to be using your phone like heavily for a day, you might want to pop in a battery and just turn on low power mode. When you turn it on, the main indication that it's on is that the battery level icon in the upper right of your device will be yellow instead of green when low power mode is off. So that's a useful option there. Now the background refreshing, that is in, I believe it's in general. Yeah, general, and then background app refresh. Background app refresh, I don't necessarily say completely turn it off because it's kind of a handy feature because if your phone can go out and refresh its content, so like your latest emails will be available automatically for you. You don't have to wait. So it can be useful to use it, but if there's apps that you don't need them to do background refresh, you can turn them off. You can just toggle them off. It's like I turned off Facebook. Facebook is kind of a sort of a known app that will use a lot of battery in the background. And if you really didn't want background app refresh at all, you could completely turn it off at the top there. And let's see. I think the two other tips that I'll mention is it's somewhat common with iOS devices for people to force quit their apps when they're done with them. I see that pretty commonly, and that's kind of against best practices now. So what I mean by that is when you double tap the home button, you get this menu here, and then you can force quit an app by flipping it up. Flick up, that force quits your apps. People tend to think that just because they have all these apps here, that means that they're running in the background. That's not what it means. It means that it suspends some of the apps, but it's really also just a list of all of the apps that you've used frequently. So it's an easy way to get back to a previous app that you've just been using. But if you force quit an app, it has to start it from the beginning. And so if it's an app you use frequently, you actually might get better battery life if you just don't force quit it. Just go right back into it because the app will be suspended and will just restart quicker. So I don't have any hard data on that, but that's just like a feeling that I have about that one. And the last tip that I'll say to get better battery life is you can get a battery charger, like a battery pack for your iPhone. Apple makes one for the iPhone 6, but lots of companies, Mophie, make them. They're cases that go on your device, and they have a battery included in them, and they can often give you a whole double your battery life. Basically, Apple's does not quite do that, but Apple's has some kind of nice features. This iPhone 6 does have the Apple battery pack on, and so if I swipe down to look at my notifications, there's a batteries widget, and I can see how much battery my iPhone has, my case has, my watch has. The Apple one has some additional intelligence that the other ones do not. The other ones, you kind of have to remember to turn them on or off. The Apple one, you just put it on and it will know how to charge the case versus charging the iPhone. It's fairly smart. It's $100. Hopefully future iPhones will just have better battery life and we won't need these solutions. But until then, use these tricks to save better battery life. If you have ideas on how to save battery life, leave a comment. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, Leave a comment. I want to know what other videos to make for you guys. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.